It's a question really of how you regard the Bible. The Bible isn't a handbook for AIDS or any other disease. It's not how we react, you know. It's the Bible tells us about God. When Jesus came, he was the personification of God, if you like, in the sense that he was God to so many people, and more than anything else, he showed the love of God. Faith in itself is not a very attractive commodity, you know. It only becomes attractive when it's eating people. Faith is not about answering questions. If somebody comes along to me and says, you know, why have I got HIV? Why did my baby die? Why did my dear old grandma die? You know, there's no answer to that question. All you can say is that what faith does is help you live with a problem. It doesn't answer problems, it helps you to live with problems. And it doesn't matter whether you're Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hottentot, you go through life burdened by difficulties. Like a man going through life burdened with a heavy haversack, something like that. It's always there. And I think that faith can help you to face problems, help you to live with problems, rather than answer why you've got a problem. I think really, the big question really is about what sin is. If sin, for most people, is actually selfishness. Sin is putting yourself before God and putting yourself before other people. The sin, if you like, is making a god of yourself. There's lots and lots of ways in which people can be selfish. And one of the ways could be contraception. Somebody could be exercising their own selfishness without thinking, say, of the husband or the wife, or thinking about the rest of the family, or, you know, it could just be selfishness. In that case, it's a sin in the sense that it's selfish.
Professor Abraham Karpus was a leading researcher for the Department of Haematology at Cambridge University. He had been working there since 1969, and in 1983 was the first scientist to isolate the HIV virus in the UK.
One of the positive things about HIV is it is not easy to catch. The most important way of transmission of the virus is through sexual intercourse, because the semen of an infected individual contains cells which are infected with HIV. There were far more people infected with the virus in Africa than in the UK, because the virus originated from Africa. By the time the virus was discovered, there were probably already millions of Africans who were already infected with the virus, while in the UK, the number was far smaller, and the education is more rigorous. It is possible to reduce the spread of the virus by education and propaganda, basically. If you want to believe in God, it's one's own business, but unfortunately the virus is not very religious, and it doesn't behave according to religious dogmas. So if you want to believe in it, fine, but in practice I don't think it makes any difference.
On the 24th of April 2008, The Independent's leading headline asked the controversial question, "Is it time to give up the search for an AIDS vaccine?"
There's lots of debate going on around at the moment about whether or not an AIDS cure will be found.
Unfortunately, we are not closer today to find any cure that we were 25 years ago when the virus was discovered.
I think only very recently there's quite a number of modern scientists who are saying, you know, another tack has got to be tried, that we're getting nowhere with the present experimentations and research. But let's hope they find something, yes.
It is estimated at the moment, probably the time being, over 40 million people around the world are infected with the virus. This is, I think, a conservative estimate.
I don't think a cure is going to be found anytime soon. It may be found in the next 20 to 40, 50 years, maybe more. But I think it's really important to carry on trying.
Kwa sababu virusi vya HIV ni kama tu ugonjwa zingine, hata malaria huwa, hata TB huwa.
The drugs, whilst they are fairly strong, and I wouldn't recommend contracting HIV to anybody, avoid it at all costs, it's not necessarily a death sentence as it was 20 plus years ago.
The use of condoms to prevent the spread of AIDS has been consistently controversial. While condoms have been proven to vastly reduce the risk of transmission during sex, fundamentalist aspects of Christianity regard their use as a sinful act.
There's lots and lots of ways in which people can be selfish. And one of the ways could be contraception.
People who have religious views have certain ideas about contraception. These types of views are often quite unrealistic in terms of the way people carry out their everyday lives. The fact is that people do have sex, and we believe that by giving people the information that they need to have safer sex and prevent themselves from becoming infected with diseases is a much better way than banning contraception.
The church isn't into the scientific business, the church is into the moral business or the pastoral business. That's what the church is concerned with. Eh?
There's also a view that comes from the Catholic Church that it is preferable to be abstinent until marriage and not to have sex until you're within marriage. This isn't particularly realistic, as marriage is not a protection against HIV transmission. There's many people who wait until marriage to have sex and then find that they become infected with HIV from their partner, as they weren't aware of their partner's HIV status. And this isn't particularly helpful in global efforts to prevent HIV transmission.
The communist leaders in Russia, some of them try to claim that AIDS is a capitalistic disease because it was discovered in the United States and then in Europe. So unfortunately the clergyman's attitude and expression about AIDS is as valid as those of the last generation of the Soviet leaders.
With all these opposing views, it is hard to say whether religion has a positive impact in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Having faith can give you hope. But is this advantage negated by the Church's reluctance to accept that people do have promiscuous sex, and contraception is needed to reduce the spread of AIDS?
If you want to believe in God, it's one's own business.
Other people, they live their lives very often because of the faith that they've got.
It's not necessarily a death sentence as it was 20 plus years ago. I think that with the drugs, and if you're able to catch it quickly and not ignore those signs, then you stand a good chance of actually living a fuller, healthier life and reaching your potential and achieving some of your dreams.
If you have things in your life that strengthen you in your mind, provide you support, I think faith is something that can be very, very good, very positive for people who are living with HIV.
Mimi nina furaha. Sasa hivi kuna furaha sana. Juu kwanza na control maisha yangu, maisha ini control. Sasa nafurahia.
I've always taken the view that heaven is going to be quite a sad place if it's full of old people and not young people.
AIDS is a worldwide epidemic that destroys the lives of millions of people. And with over 20 years of research fueling a widespread pessimism over the likelihood of a cure being developed, prevention remains our best hope. In the UK, secular government has bypassed religious objections to the advocation of contraceptives. And it is a combination of this and our well-funded universal education system that has permitted the propagation of progressive attitudes towards AIDS. In this context, it is easy to see why the rate of infection is so much higher in an impoverished, developing country such as Kenya, where fundamental aspects of the church are largely influential, and education standards are poor, owing to lack of available funding. While Christian faith may provide hope and solace for people living with AIDS, those concerned with fighting it can only find hope in having faith in the church's capacity for change.